And with us is Dr. Larry Allen, former New Mexico State Police officer, now a pastor, and also works with the New Life Baptist Church Academy as well. Dr. Allen, thanks for being with us this morning.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to get your take, especially as being a former New Mexico State police officer in the current civil unrest we're seeing across the country, and even here in Albuquerque with protests. And regardless of what the leadership has said about maybe reallocating funds, starting a new community police apparatus, I still see the protesters and their signs say defund APD. What's kind of your read on that, and also some of the city's measures trying to implement a new kind of public safety apparatus using mental health professionals?
Well, you probably heard me chuckle a little bit when you introduced me as a former state police officer, and all my buddies out there, because once you're a state police officer, you're always a brother. They
for
refer
life,
to me as
yeah.
Has been, and only teasing. It was great to be on that department. I think some of the decisions that are being made are like absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't mean that we don't need to make some changes as far as law enforcement is concerned, but it does mean that we use some common sense, like defunding the police. It doesn't take rocket science to understand that you defund police, you have less police officers out on the highways and byways and in the cities. Crime is going to go up because stupid people will continue to do things that are stupid. So one of the reasons that people are out there in uniforms and badges and plain clothes is to make sure that people follow the laws.
Yeah. What do you think we'll see law enforcement as maybe in 10 years from now, as this movement has started across the country, and of course we're implementing some new things here in the city of Albuquerque?
I think we need to have some leadership that stands up, gets some spine in their back, and kind of speak out what really is true. The big problem is not necessarily where we have such bad policemen. Every department, every agency has their small percentage of bad policing, but what we should do is get rid of them. But let me address what you're really talking about. One, we need to have better recruiting policies. In other words, instead of when we go out and recruit and we hire, or during our selection process, sometimes cronies get hired. If the person doesn't qualify, he or she just doesn't qualify if they don't meet the standard.
Are you saying, Larry, that there's cronyism in the state of New Mexico? What?
Listen, as you know, I've been here for a long. This is my second time back. So in the second time back, I've been back 33 years, and New Mexico is a mess when it comes to cronyism. But rather than complain about it, we have to learn to get around it, because there's more important things than a person that doesn't qualify being a law enforcement officer enforcing the laws of the great state of New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. What about psychological training? And you said to with some of the, there are bad apples. I hate that term, but there are bad apples in every profession. Police is no different. We've seen that on full display. But what are some of the things psychologically, as far as testing, or something that we can do different to try to weed out some of those folks before they wear a badge?
Well, back in, I forget the date because I tell you I'm an old timer. I remember the first psychologist that we hired in law enforcement for the state of New Mexico was a guy by the name of Pete DeVasto. And what he did, he was right at the beginning of the selection process to make sure that this person had, I'll use a couple of words, had the right temperament. As you know, a lot of times a person, and I'll talk about police officers, I used to be one, if they haven't had the right training or they don't have the right mindset, they will escalate something before they de-escalate it, because they may or may not have the skills. So when we were going through the recruiting and the selection process, we would just check to make sure that they have the mental capacity to handle the pressure that they're going to face day in and day out, understanding that their job now is to protect and serve, and some might say serve and protect, but then we would say arrest as may be necessary. So then some of that psychological training would be, while they're going through the recruit school, you put them in a situation to where they're at a domestic violence situation, and then train them or teach them how to handle it. And then even in the selection process, we begin to realize, hey, this male or female, this person doesn't have the capabilities or the training necessary to wear that badge that we're all so proud of.
Yeah, Larry Allen with us on News Radio KKOB, and one of the things that they want to implement here in Albuquerque is sending mental health professionals out on calls, and you know this as well as anyone. Even what you would think was a routine or ordinary call could go sideways in a matter of seconds. What's your take on the mental health professionals being out there without a trained officer?
Well, I think that's crazy. So one of my favorite shows used to be Dragnet, and you go dum. The thing that makes me laugh in that is, one, trained professionals don't need to go to a situation like that first. So a police officer would get there to make sure that it's safe, and then recognize that we need somebody there that has the psychological and psychiatric training necessary to handle situations such as that, and then the police officers stay there just to make it safe to let them handle it. Imagine now, I know one of those areas to where we have a husband or a spouse that's fired up over something, and you send that psychologist over there in that explosive environment, he's going to get hurt. So when we talk about subjects like that, we're not saying that we don't need personnel such as that with the skills to handle things. What we're saying is we need to understand the elements of the situation, the circumstances that we're sending them to. I would never send a counselor to a domestic violence situation by himself, because he or her is going to get hurt. And it's just common sense, man. And
that kind of defeats the purpose, because they want to have officers not responding to every single call, especially benign calls. But if you're going to have an officer there anyway, then we're just expanding the public safety apparatus. And I don't know if we're getting officers off the hook to do other things when they're still going to be have to be around, or at least check out one of the more benign calls for the public health professional.
Yeah, and then so what we'll do is, instead of trying to turning the bathwater up and throwing the water in the baby out, we will look at it and go, what's needed, what is absolutely necessary, and then so we're going to defund the police, start another division within the police department of civilians who have no idea on how to handle it. Now, I'm being careful because I don't want people to think that I'm saying that they're not qualified, but not everyone is qualified to be a law enforcement officer. So we'd have to have that officer go there and go, yes, there is a qualified professional that knows more than I know for this situation, so let's send them.
Yeah.
That would be after it's all. Yeah. That would be after it's all de-escalated. I mean, everybody knows that a lot of times where officers get hurt, I'm a victim myself, to where you go to a situation and the dad and the son are fighting or whatever the case may be, and then you have to arrest the dad or the son, and then the rest of the family jumps on you. So that's not, that's a very volatile. I like that. I'm going to use a stronger word than benign. That's a very volatile situation. So we would make sure that these officers have the training. And that's one of the things I kind of like focus on. But I'm just going to say it because I know you have other questions. And our problem now is we just need to make sure that we're giving the officers the skills that they need to handle whatever it is that they're going to have to face.
Yeah, Larry Allen with us on News Radio KKOB. We saw, at least on Friday, the protests move from downtown to the uptown area, and the organizers blatantly said it. They wanted to go to a place to disrupt business, and they targeted the more upscale businesses, and they had to close down for the day on Friday. Do you think that kind of moves the needle for the issues that they want to champion when they close businesses? We get the freeway shut down because you just make people angry. Yeah.
No, well, now you're talking to a moss bag. That's what they call us, old timers, right? So here's what's supposed to happen. If you want to peacefully protest, that is fine. But I don't care what the name of your group is. You're not going to shut down businesses, close down streets. If we give you a permit to protest, that is great. But all of a sudden destruction, graffiti on the walls, standing in front of businesses, not letting the owner get to his business where he can open his business, that's a no-no. Somebody needs to go to jail.
Yeah, no, we didn't see that Friday. Larry Allen with us on News Radio KKOB. Larry, can you hang with us for a second?
Oh, yes, I can say, yes.
And we'll get Larry's take on New Mexico schools here, as well as we have the process of reopening for this fall. 8:17 now on News Radio KKOB. Traffic is BB in for Bob Clark, 96.3 News Radio KKOB. Larry Allen with us. And Larry, you're also a part of the New Life Baptist Academy, and it's a private school in the city of Albuquerque. What are some of the things that you guys are doing in response to COVID to keep folks safe? And are you looking at some of the recommendations that the state has given out?
We no longer own the school, Brandon. We sold it. Legacy bought our buildings, and so Brother Steve Smotherman is running the school out of Legacy now, his school and from his church. Mm-hmm. But as far as school is concerned, you know better than I do. They need to open those schools, get those kids in school where they need to be, where they can learn. And as I see a lot of these decisions, I don't see a lot of common sense, but I don't see a lot of science. They say that they're following the principles of science, and no, I'm not an epidemiologist, but sometimes it's just common sense. Kids aren't getting sick. We have plenty of states, other nations around us that have already begun to do what we refer to as using that herd mentality, and we need to learn to build up our immunity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what do you think? And you've been involved with schools for a long time. But what are the kind of the psychological component of having, especially younger kids, going to school in the hybrid model that the state is going to roll out with half the time in school and then back home again, when we all know that social interaction is a big part of growing up and learning how to be an adult?
Absolutely, and then the other part in that area would be we're going to have to learn to coexist with the COVID-19 or Corona, and stop causing our kids to live in fear. Anytime we talk about Corona virus or COVID-19, and then we use like an illustration like, well, what are we going to do with the other 12 or 15? It depends on what you Google. Other major viruses or diseases that are out there, what are we going to do about them? Are we going to have a vaccine? Who knows? Who cares? It would be nice if we have one. It'd be wonderful, but it doesn't appear that that's going to come soon. So instead of causing our kids to fear, show them how to socially interact, how to protect themselves, things that they can and can't do. Knowing this, I'll use the third and fourth graders or younger. When you get kids in a group, them staying away from each other, sitting 6 feet away, all those rules that we have out there, bad English purposely. My wife will hate this, but it ain't going to happen.
Larry Allen, thanks for being with us. Great perspective on policing and schools. And Larry, thanks again. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it, sir.
All right. This is 96.3 News Radio, KKOB.